This is another example that I think is brilliant in terms of solutions for rural communities. This is Thriftway, a grocery store in Hiawatha, Kansas, population 2,500. And this grocer, he's a community leader, as many of the rural grocers are, and he's been running this business at a loss for a number of years. And the reason that rural grocery stores are losing money, and they're closing by the dozens, if not hundreds, every year in the United States, is that rural populations are shrinking, or Walmart has come in and taken all the business. And even if they're willing to operate at a loss, like this gentleman, sometimes they simply can't get distributors to come out and deliver because they can't make the minimum order. So they're really in dire straits in rural America. So this gentleman, the community was starting to organize around trying to get a farmer's market going. And he went to the meeting and was listening to everybody saying, we need a farmer's market. And he's thinking to himself, well, I sell produce. This is sounding a lot like competition. And one of the people after the meeting went up to him and he said, you know, we need a place for this farmer's market to meet. If you put it in your parking lot, I would come to the farmer's market and then I would go and shop at your store and buy everything else I needed in that shopping trip. And that was the minute that this guy realized what a business opportunity this might be. So he agreed to host the farmer's market in his parking lot. And the day, Tuesday afternoon and evening, is when the farmer's market runs. And his business goes up 8 to 12% that day alone. And it has stayed high the rest of the week versus where he was before he started doing this. One of the reasons that it's working well is that the farmers who come are guaranteed to sell everything that they bring. Because what doesn't sell at this farmer's market, he brings into his produce department and he sells on the floor. And he has tags that indicate that it's locally grown and which farm that it came from. But it gets better. This guy's brilliance is incredible. He has a back room that is completely unutilized. Again, it's a smaller business than when that store was built. He doesn't need as much of the floor footprint that he did. He has an extra cooler, he has a wash basin, and a little bit of a storage area in the back. And he's going to take out 3 aisles of merchandise that he doesn't need and create a food hub. So he's going to do aggregation in the back of his grocery store. He's got the raised dock. He's already sending and taking in deliveries by semi. So the basic infrastructure is there. So now he's going to have his wholesale business in the back of his retail business. And because he's got the farmers coming to his store bringing locally produced food, the distributor can take locally grown food on a backhaul when they bring the groceries in. So there's an additional reason for that distributor to come and deliver groceries, because they can take a high-value product back with them and sell it into the larger metropolitan areas that they serve. So we are working with Kansas State University to do a baseline feasibility analysis of converting rural grocery stores into food hubs so that we can get more and more of these rural grocery stores onto safe business footing so that they can continue to provide food access for the communities that they serve. Without them, we've got food deserts. I might skip this one. I'm going to skip this one. The basic idea here is that a lunchroom was turned into a food processing center at a facility that serves adults with disabilities. Another genius move, example of rural engineering. And here also is an example of a small town with a huge vision for creating a sustainable food system. Town of Floyd, 400 people live there, and they're going to build a dairy, a $10 million dairy to produce value-added dairy products and specialty cheese and sell it at the top of the market. And we did the feasibility analysis, and there's a real business opportunity for them to do it. And they'll start very small. They'll use the lean startup approaches that we recommend, so they don't build a facility that they can't support. But again, I would love this idea of a small town with a big vision, creating a product that has demand in the city center. So we think about the work that we do in terms of asset-based development. We look at the assets that exist in the community, not just infrastructure, but also the people and what those stakeholders are willing to do. And then we create food hubs and come up with the enterprise model that fits those dynamics of that specific area. And they'll go across the value chain from production all the way through retailing. Okay, so that was experience. Now here are the thoughts. And as you think about all this great work, aren't these exciting, innovative, efficient models? But I really do wonder, is this going to last? In the United States, there are 300 food hubs across the U.S., 300 of these little businesses. And they just did a survey last year. Wallace Center, which is a nonprofit that is serving this particular industry very well. And the survey came back, one of the questions was, what's your annual revenue? And this is what the answer was. The scale was from 3,000 to 75 million at the high. The number of respondents to this question was 86. So that we think is great until you see how the cluster is. The average is 3.7 million, and then the median revenue for these food hubs is 325,000. There's no way they're covering their overhead. No way. Maybe these guys are. And in fact, half of them are not covering their expenses. So you've got half of the 300 food hubs that are underwater. So how are they going to last? And my thesis is they won't. They'll either go out of business or the regional distributors are going to swallow them up. The more successful ones are going to get absorbed by the current food system. Once they realize that local food is here to stay, it's the fastest way for them to gain access. So this is what's got us thinking pretty hard about the work that we do. And direct-to-consumer is gaining a lot of speed in the United States, but I think it's limited. I don't think this is the solution for scaling regional food systems. And I think it's limited, number one, in who it reaches. They're higher margin businesses, so the products are expensive. They're only going to reach the elite. Plus, it's not going to solve the food system problems overall. 6% of shoppers right now are buying food online. That's it. It might grow. It has a lot of headroom, right? But still, it's a small base. Plus, almost half of what we eat isn't even eaten at home. So it doesn't even address the food that's going into institutions and restaurants. And in addition, if we really want to change our food system, we've got to look at the wholesale market. It's 99% of all the food that's moved in the United States is through wholesale channels. Direct consumer is less than 1% right now. So this is the nut to crack in our view. So maybe this is overkill, but the market for local food in the United States is $180 billion. And this comes from a tool that we have on our website called the Market Sizer, where you can plug in your geography and see what the gap is. So how big should a food hub be? Well, it's not going to be $180 billion. Let's cut it down a little farther. If you were going to be a regional food hub serving just the Mid-Atlantic, $24 billion would be your market base. If you were just going to use North Carolina as your definition of local, $5 billion is your market there. And let's say you're going to be super hyper-local and just serve Raleigh, North Carolina, that's a $600 million market, and the average food hub is at $3 million. So the question is, where is the volume? Why aren't we scaling these food hubs any faster? The demand is there. And this is a depiction of what we all know. There just isn't an easy way for these two sides of the value chain to conduct business. You've got a farm scale, I think of the pickup truck pulling up to the Cisco warehouse dock. They just don't match. So we need intermediaries that connect the two, and food hubs help. They're doing a decent job of aggregating from lots of farms and doing all these functions that are needed in order to adjust for that scale difference. And they're doing pretty well at reaching consumers, independents, retailers, and some small institutions, but they're not reaching the largest players that are moving the most food in our food system, the processors, the big distributors, and our large chain retailers. And it's because they're local by definition. They simply can't get the product volume to be a valued supplier to those largest institutions and grocery stores. So this is what's got us going. There are lots of other reasons, not just volume. There are all the other reasons that you eliminated in your presentation as well, in terms of service levels and that sort of thing. So what are we doing about it? Well, we're going to build a trade network. And I promise you technology is about to surface. So we're building a trade network. So I've had a few thought partners that we've been studying this problem for about 2 years. And we're just about to launch this trade network. And a lot of it is still in development, so I'm not going to disclose every detail, but I'm going to give you the basic business model. This trade network takes local food to scale. It gives single unit food hubs the advantage of scale and provides large buyers with unprecedented access to local food. And there are 4 things that we're going to do in this business. The first thing is that we're going to organize hubs into powerful supply networks. So in fact, we're going to be an aggregator of aggregators. And you think to yourself, well, why isn't this already happening? Why aren't these food hubs that are in a region already collaborating and trying to combine their supply to reach these larger markets? And the truth is they are collaborating. They meet, they have phone calls, they might get together once a year, but nothing ever happens. I know this to be true in the Midwest and in New England. And the problem is that somebody has to step up and lead. And who's going to do that? You have to have the authority, of course, but then it's time and resources. And the size of these businesses, time is money. So there isn't an easy solution for this to happen at a grassroots level. So we come in, we are the organizing entity that brings these things together. The second thing that we're going to do is drive volume to these largest players. And this might be anathema in the room, we'll find out soon. But I believe that we aren't changing anything unless we're getting better food through the distributors that own the trucks that are moving it to the places where we already buy our food. And we can do this in a way that the food hubs can't. They just don't have the language. They don't know how to talk to the buyers at these places. Unfortunately, because of our backgrounds, we do. The third thing we're going to do is a brand. This came up earlier. We don't think that we can scale quickly without a brand. And we're talking about a regional brand, yes, but we're also talking about a national brand. These are national distributors, and they're not going to get behind a local program that has a different brand in every region. They're going to get behind a local program that has one name from coast to coast, and they can use efficiency in their communication against one brand name. It's going to stand for local, but it's going to be a common name that's a national brand name. And it will have farm identification carried through to the point of purchase if that's what the end customer wants. Well, how are we going to do this? We're going to support it with technology, and we're going to support it with business services. There's a lot that we're going to have to do to help the food hubs get their standards up to a level that will meet these buyers' requirements. And the technology solution is critical. We don't think we can deliver our value prop without a technology platform. But first, a little more about how we're organizing. So this is New England. We're going to pilot it there next year. What we're going to do is to have a coordinating hub that's sort of the center focus of all the activity. They're going to be the aggregators of the aggregators. And then there are going to be aggregating hubs throughout the region. There is going to be a processing hub, very important, that's part of the network, as well as one or more distribution hubs that have trucks. Our customers, we think, are going to do lots of picking up, but I think we also have an opportunity to use the freight that exists in these food hubs. The thing that's so important about this, getting a processor engaged, is we want to promise the farms that we're going to sell everything that they produce. If they plant an acre, we're going to buy an acre. And you can't do that unless you've got processors in the network. Right now, they can sell, we know that it's 10 to 20% of stuff never makes it off the farm because it's just not great to make it to market. We're saying we're going to buy it all, and we're going to find an outlet for everything you grow. So what your price per case might be a little lower on your number ones, but we're going to get everything sold off of that acre. So that's the value prop to the grower. They get to sell the whole acre. So technology, why is this important? Well, right now, each one of these hubs has a line of sight to their farms and what their farms are supplying. And their line of sight is actually very tedious to see. You have to use a lot of Excel and phone, and there are some of these hubs that actually do have technology where the farms are entering what's on its way. But for the most part, it's a very manual process. The technology that we're going to develop, and in fact we've already started working with a developer, is actually going to allow the network to see production across every one of these nodes. So if you are the coordinating hub, you're going to see what this hub's supply is up in Maine, as well as this hub's supply in New York. And once we build it out, it is going to be national. And it's important for Trade Network because our customers are national. Their boundaries aren't necessarily the same as the nested market that our hubs define. So we may well have this hub selling products to a customer that's over here. So it's an API-based technology that allows the network system to read the supply database that's locally developed by each hub. If that hub doesn't have a system that captures supply, they can buy a light version of this software and create the database for their farms. And we think there's a lot of work that's going to be needed to get this thing set up, but once it is, it's going to allow us to provide supply into these customers and be a meaningful supplier to these customers. So I think that's enough. I think I've talked about most of the reasons why we think this is a great idea for everybody involved. The one thing that I want to point out is that consumers, I think, win in this thing as well. And there are two reasons. We're going to be able to deliver food more affordably because we're doing it on the trucks that are already going to those destinations, and we're going to get better food at the places where they already shop. That, to me, is the reason I'm sort of on the planet. My goal is not to continue to go to the farmer's market. My goal is to actually go to my local supermarket and get better food and know that everybody who shops there has the same access that I do. So that is the end of our ideas, and I'd be so interested in what thoughts you have about things that you're doing that are similar, or whether you see something like this aggregator of aggregators with a technology platform that drives it as something that might work.